All right, let's dive into this Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Okay.
I have to say, the premise alone really grabbed me,
Yeah.
It's not about companies that were, like, born stellar. It's about the ones that became great.
Right.
That's a journey I think we can all relate to, right?
Absolutely.
Like trying to improve, trying to get better.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that sets this book apart is that Collins and his team, they spent 5 years meticulously researching companies that made that leap.
Yeah.
Comparing them to those that stayed merely good.
Right.
And they weren't satisfied with just anecdotes or opinions. They dug into hard data, financials, leadership styles, the whole shebang.
So no fuzzy feel-good stuff here,
Right.
just cold, hard evidence.
Exactly.
I have to say, what really struck me was how Collins's team was initially told to downplay the role of the CEO.
Yeah.
That kind of goes against everything we usually hear about leadership, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a real eye-opener. You'd think the key to greatness would be
Yeah.
a brilliant, charismatic leader calling all the shots.
Right.
But that's not what the research showed.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued.
Oh.
If it's not the superstar CEO then what does separate these good to great companies?
Well, they found a very specific type of leadership
Okay.
at play, which Collins calls level 5 leadership.
Ah.
Now, these aren't your flashy, self-promoting types.
Okay.
They're a fascinating blend of personal humility
Interesting.
and unwavering professional will. Their ambition isn't about personal glory. It's laser-focused on the company's success.
So it's kind of like a secret superpower working behind the scenes.
Exactly.
You have a favorite example of this from the book?
Darwin Smith at Kimberly-Clark
Okay.
is a great illustration.
Okay.
He was known for being quiet, unassuming,
Okay.
even wearing old, faded suits.
Really?
Some people even described him as looking like a country storekeeper.
Oh.
But under his leadership, Kimberly-Clark underwent an incredible transformation, even taking on the behemoth that is Procter & Gamble.
So it wasn't about being the loudest voice in the room,
Right.
but having that quiet determination to steer the company toward greatness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book contrasts this with the genius with 1,000 helpers model,
Okay.
often seen in companies that didn't achieve lasting success.
Right.
Think of someone like Stanley Galt at Rubbermaid.
Okay.
Initially, he was very successful, but ultimately, he didn't build a culture of sustainable greatness.
So it makes you wonder if some of those big personalities might actually be hindering true, lasting success.
Yeah.
What else did the research uncover?
One of the most surprising findings was the importance of people.
Okay.
Collins calls it first who, then what.
Okay.
The good to great companies focused on getting the right people on the bus.
Right.
And just as importantly, getting the wrong people off the bus
Oh.
before figuring out where to drive it.
Whoa. That really flips the script.
Yeah.
I mean, usually you'd think the grand vision comes first, and then you assemble the team to execute it.
Yeah. But the research suggests otherwise.
Huh.
Think about Dick Cooley at Wells Fargo.
Okay.
He took over as CEO during massive upheaval in the banking industry.
Oh, wow.
Nobody knew what the future held with deregulation looming.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to predict the future, he focused on assembling a top-notch team.
Talk about building a powerhouse. Did it work?
Almost every member of his executive team went on to become CEOs of major companies.
Wow.
Having the right people in place made all the difference in Wells Fargo's ability to adapt and thrive amidst all that uncertainty.
All right, so you've got the right leader, the right team.
Yep.
What's the next ingredient in this recipe for greatness?
That it's about facing reality,
Okay.
which is where the idea of confront the brutal facts, yet never lose faith, comes in.
Yeah.
This is where the book gets really powerful,
Okay.
drawing on the experience of Admiral Jim Stockdale.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Okay.
Who is Admiral Stockdale?
So Admiral Stockdale was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
He endured torture, solitary confinement, the whole horrific ordeal.
Yeah.
Yet he never lost faith that he would eventually prevail.
That's incredible. But how does that apply to leading a company?
Well, the good to great companies,
Yeah.
like Stockdale, faced immense challenges.
Right.
But instead of shying away from harsh realities,
Yeah.
they confronted their problems head on.
Okay.
They acknowledged their weaknesses, yet never lost sight of their ultimate goals. Collins calls this the Stockdale paradox.
So it's about acknowledging the brutal facts, but not letting them crush your spirit.
Yeah.
I can see how powerful that would be.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
It's like this Imagine you're in a crisis.
Okay.
The Stockdale paradox is what keeps you from giving up,
Yeah.
while also pushing you to make the tough decisions needed to navigate that crisis.
That grit and determination, that unwavering faith that you'll find a way through.
Exactly.
That makes sense for a POW.
Right.
How did companies apply this in a practical sense?
Take Fannie Mae, for example.
Huh.
They were on the brink of collapse,
Wow.
but they never lost sight of their mission. They acknowledged the dire situation,
Right.
made difficult choices,
Yeah.
and ultimately found a path to success.
So brutal honesty coupled with unwavering faith, it's a powerful combination.
It is.
And I bet it applies to far more than just business challenges.
Absolutely.
What comes after you've faced those brutal facts head on?
This is where strategy comes into play,
Okay.
with what Collins calls the hedgehog concept.
Okay.
It's about understanding three key things.
Right.
What you can be the absolute best in the world at,
Okay.
what drives your economic engine,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're deeply passionate about.
So it's not just about being good, it's about being the best, but also connecting that to the heart of the business and what truly excites the people involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The book uses the analogy of a hedgehog and a fox
Okay.
to illustrate this.
Okay.
The fox is clever, tries lots of different tactics.
Mm-hmm.
The hedgehog, on the other hand,
Okay.
has one simple defense. It rolls up in a ball of spikes.
So the hedgehog wins by focusing on its core strength,
Right.
even if it appears simple or less sophisticated on the surface.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's nice.
And that's what the good to great companies did.
Yeah,
They weren't distracted by shiny objects or chasing after every new trend.
right.
They figured out their hedgehog concept
Mhm.
and poured their energy into becoming the very best in that specific arena.
It's like that old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. Can you give me a concrete example of a company that nailed this hedgehog concept?
Wells Fargo is a great example again.
Oh, wow.
They realized they couldn't be the best bank in every single market,
Yeah.
but they could be the best at serving a specific geographic region and offering specific financial services.
So instead of trying to be everything to everyone, they doubled down on what they knew they could excel at.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, potential,
Yeah.
and economic reality intersect.
Right.
It's not just about what you want to be great at,
Right.
but what you truly can be great at
Mm.
while still making the business work.
So we've got the right people,
Yes.
a clear-eyed view of reality,
Mhm.
and a focused hedgehog concept.
Right.
It sounds like a solid foundation.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there's more to this good to great puzzle.
There's still a vital piece missing,
Okay.
building a culture of discipline.
Okay.
Now, this isn't about being rigid or inflexible.
Okay.
It's about creating an environment where self-disciplined people can thrive
Okay.
and where disciplined action becomes a core value.
That sounds a lot more empowering than having someone constantly cracking the whip.
Right. It's about empowering the right people to make the right decisions,
Yeah.
but within a framework that keeps everyone aligned with the hedgehog concept.
Okay.
This requires disciplined thought as well as disciplined action.
Okay, I'm interested.
Yeah.
How do you actually cultivate a culture of discipline without stifling creativity and innovation?
The book uses a rather unusual analogy.
Okay.
Dave Scott,
Okay.
the 6-time Ironman champion.
All right, let's hear it. I'm always up for a good analogy,
Oh, yeah.
especially if it involves athletic feats.
So Scott was already in peak physical condition,
Yeah.
yet he obsessed over every tiny detail that could improve his performance.
Okay.
To get the extra fat off,
Mm-hmm.
he would meticulously rinse his cottage cheese.
He rinsed his cottage cheese. Now that's commitment.
Right.
Right.
Whether rinsing cottage cheese actually made a difference is debatable,
Yeah.
but it highlights a key point.
Okay.
Discipline is about unwavering commitment to excellence,
Mm-hmm.
even in the smallest details.
I see where you're going with this.
Okay.
It's that relentless pursuit of improvement, that dedication to doing everything possible to reach your full potential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in a company, that translates to a team of individuals all operating at that same level.
Right.
Each rinsing their cottage cheese, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
All aligned with the hedgehog concept.
So it's not about one person dictating every move. It's
Yeah.
about building a collective mindset where everyone takes ownership and strives for excellence in their own area.
That's the essence of a true culture of discipline.
Okay.
Now, you might think technology would be the main driver of greatness,
Yeah.
especially in today's world.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine any company achieving significant growth without leveraging technology in some way.
But surprisingly, Collins found that the good to great companies didn't see technology as a magic bullet.
Interesting.
They used it strategically as an accelerator of momentum, not the creator of it.
So they weren't jumping on every new gadget or software trend just for the sake of it?
They were very discerning.
Okay.
They asked themselves, does this technology fit our hedgehog concept? Will it help us become the best in the world at what we do?
Right.
And if the answer was no, they wouldn't bother.
That's refreshing to hear. Yeah. It's so easy to get swept up in the hype.
Right.
But it sounds like they kept their eyes on the prize.
Absolutely.
Do any of the companies in the book stand out as a good example of this?
Walgreens is a fascinating case study.
Oh, okay.
In the late 90s, when the dot-com craze was at its peak, Walgreens was very cautious about the internet.
I bet a lot of people thought they were missing the boat.
They did.
Just like those who doubted Darwin Smith's quiet leadership style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of panicking, Walgreens took a step back and carefully considered how the internet could be integrated into their existing hedgehog concept, which was all about convenience and excellent customer service.
So they figured out what made sense for them?
Yes.
Instead of blindly copying what everyone else was doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They built a very successful online presence that complemented their physical stores, while many of the pure dot-com pharmacies went bust.
This makes me think about all the businesses that scrambled to get on social media without a clear strategy.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into that trap of chasing the latest shiny object.
Right. Technology is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's only effective when it's used in a way that supports your core mission and values.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yep.
It's about having a clear vision, staying true to your core principles, and building that momentum over time.
Exactly.
But it also sounds like a long and winding road.
It can be.
How long did it typically take these companies to make the leap from good to great?
That's a great question, and it leads us to the fascinating concept of the flywheel effect.
All right, let's get this flywheel spinning. What's the story here?
Imagine a giant, heavy flywheel.
Okay.
It takes a ton of effort to get it moving initially, right?
Yep. Like one of those old steam engines chugging away just to get the first rotation.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But once that flywheel starts moving, every push adds momentum, making it spin faster and faster.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's spinning so fast that it becomes almost unstoppable.
I see the connection to building a company.
Yeah.
It's not about some overnight miracle. It's about consistent effort building upon itself over time until you hit that critical mass and success starts snowballing.
That's the beauty of the flywheel effect.
Yeah.
It's about consistency, discipline, and patience. Those good to great transformations didn't happen overnight.
Right.
They were the result of sustained effort over time.
That's actually quite encouraging.
It is.
You don't have to have all the answers right now.
Right.
But if you keep pushing in the right direction, you can build something truly extraordinary.
That's one of the most hopeful takeaways from the book.
Yeah.
It reinforces the importance of everything we've been discussing. The right leader, the right people, a clear hedgehog concept, a culture of discipline, and a strategic approach to technology.
Right.
All of these work together to build that unstoppable momentum.
I love how Collins brings it to life with real-world examples. It's not just dry theory.
Yeah.
It's a story about how these principles actually play out.
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite example of the flywheel effect in action?
The story of Circuit City is a perfect example.
Okay.
They went from nearly going bankrupt to becoming a retail powerhouse.
Wow.
But what seems like overnight success was actually the culmination of over a decade.
Wow.
Of deliberate step-by-step progress.
So no lucky breaks or sudden flashes of brilliance?
Nope.
Just years of hard work, smart decisions, and that unwavering commitment to the process.
Exactly.
They started with careful experiments, confronted their weaknesses, built a great team, identified their hedgehog concept, and then just kept pushing, one step at a time.
And eventually, the flywheel started spinning.
There it is.
Generating its own momentum. Leading to remarkable results.
Wow.
The key takeaway is that it wasn't a grand, sweeping transformation, but a series of smaller, seemingly insignificant decisions and actions, all aligned with their hedgehog concept that compounded over time and ultimately led to a breakthrough.
This makes me wonder if we often overestimate the importance of those aha moments and underestimate the power of consistent, disciplined effort.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in those flashy success stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the reality is that most great companies are built brick by brick, decision by decision, over a long period of time.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that the journey doesn't end once you reach a certain level of success.
Right.
You have to keep pushing, keep innovating, and keep evolving.
So the flywheel is spinning. You've achieved a measure of greatness. What's next? How do you sustain that momentum and stay ahead of the curve?
That brings us to the final key concept.
Right.
Preserve the core, stimulate progress.
Okay.
It's about finding that delicate balance between staying true to what made you great in the first place,
Right.
while also adapting and evolving to stay relevant in a changing world.
It's that classic tension between holding on to your roots while still reaching for the sky.
Exactly.
How do companies navigate that?
The good to great companies manage this tension by clinging to their core values and purpose while simultaneously embracing continuous improvement and innovation. They didn't get stuck in the past,
Right.
but they also didn't abandon what made them special.
So evolving, but staying true to themselves.
Right.
Do you have a good example of a company that embodies this principle?
Think about Walt Disney.
Okay.
They started with animation,
Yeah.
then branched out into live-action films, television theme parks,
Right.
and now streaming services.
Right.
They've continuously evolved over nearly a century.
And they're still one of the most beloved brands in the world.
Right. But through all of that change, they've always stayed true to their core values.
Yeah.
Imagination, attention to detail, storytelling, a sense of wonder and magic.
So it's like they have this filter that ensures that every new venture, every innovation aligns with their core identity. They're willing to try new things, but they never stray too far from their roots.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's how they've stayed relevant for so long while still being instantly recognizable as Disney.
It makes you think about the importance of defining your core values,
Yes.
both personally and professionally.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to get caught up in chasing trends or trying to please everyone.
Right.
But having that strong core identity, that sense of purpose, can really guide your decisions and help you stay focused on what truly matters.
That's exactly right.
This is all starting to come together now. But I have to ask, we've been focusing on the companies that made the leap to greatness. What about those that didn't?
Right.
What set them apart?
Okay.
What can we learn from their mistakes?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
I'm ready to dissect those failures and learn what not to do.
We'll delve into that and uncover even more insights from good to great.
I can't wait. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back with part 2 of our deep dive into good to great soon.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into good to great. It's fascinating to see how these concepts build upon each other, isn't it?
It really is. We left off talking about that delicate balance between preserving your core values and stimulating progress. But something you said earlier sparked a question for me. You mentioned that building a great company isn't always a smooth, linear process.
That's right. It's easy to assume that the good to great companies had it all figured out from the start, that they followed a perfect step-by-step plan. But the reality is often much messier. There's usually a period of trial and error, of experimenting and refining before those companies really hit their stride.
So it's less like following a recipe and more like navigating uncharted territory.
Exactly. And that's where leadership comes into play again. The good to great leaders didn't pretend to have all the answers. Instead of dictating a top-down strategy, they led with questions, not answers. They encouraged open dialogue, listened to their teams, and fostered a culture of inquiry.
That makes a lot of sense. If you create an environment where people are afraid to speak up or challenge the status quo, you're going to miss out on a lot of valuable insights.
Precisely. The comparison companies, on the other hand, often had leaders who were more concerned with being right than with finding the best solutions.
I can imagine that kind of leadership would stifle innovation and create a culture of fear rather than a culture of growth.
It's about creating that psychological safety where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, even if they're unconventional or go against the grain.
It's like that old saying, 2 heads are better than 1. Or in the case of a good to great company, maybe it's more like 100 heads are better than 1.
Exactly. You need that diversity of thought, that willingness to challenge assumptions in order to find the best path forward.
So it sounds like building a great company is less about following a rigid formula and more about fostering a culture of experimentation, learning, and adaptation.
That's a great way to put it. It's a more organic process, like gardening. You plant the seeds, nurture the soil, prunes away the dead branches, and eventually something beautiful emerges.
I love that analogy. It emphasizes that you don't have to have it all figured out from the beginning. You can start with a vision, a set of core values, and then allow the process to unfold organically.
That's the beauty of it. It's a journey of discovery, not just a destination. But it's also important to be aware of the potential pitfalls along the way. The book talks about something called the doom loop, which is a dangerous cycle that can trap companies in a state of mediocrity or even lead to their downfall.
Okay, doom loop sounds ominous. What exactly is that, and how does a company get caught in it?
Imagine a hamster running on a wheel, expending a lot of energy but getting nowhere. That's the essence of the doom loop. Companies get caught in this cycle of reacting to short-term pressures and making impulsive decisions that ultimately undermine their long-term success.
They're constantly in motion, but they're not making any real progress. What are some telltale signs that a company might be trapped in this doom loop?
They might be constantly restructuring, launching new initiatives without a clear strategy, or chasing after the latest fads without considering whether those align with their core values or their hedgehog concept. They're reacting to external pressures instead of staying true to their internal compass.
It's like they've lost sight of what made them successful in the first place, and they're just scrambled to keep up with the Joneses.
Exactly. They're more focused on short-term gains or appeasing shareholders than on building something truly great and enduring.
I can see how that lack of discipline and focus could lead to a downward spiral, and I bet the wrong kind of leadership would make this problem even worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If a company has a leader who's more concerned with their own ego or short-term profits than with building a lasting legacy, it's very easy to get sucked into that doom loop.
So it's really about having that long-term vision, that unwavering commitment to your core values, and the courage to stay the course even when the pressure is on.
That's what separates the good to great companies from those that get caught in that reactive cycle. They're willing to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains, and they trust that the flywheel effect will eventually kick in and propel them forward.
They're playing the long game, not just chasing after the next quick fix. Now, you mentioned that it's possible to break free from the doom loop. What does that look like in practice?
It requires a fundamental shift in mindset and a return to the principles we've been discussing. It's about getting back to basics, reassessing your hedgehog concept, ensuring you have the right people on the bus, and recommitting to building a culture of discipline.
So hitting the reset button, reevaluating your priorities, and making sure everyone is aligned with the same goals, it sounds like it would take a strong leader to pull that off.
Often, a change in leadership is necessary to break free from the doom loop. You need someone who can come in, shake things up, and get everyone back on track.
It's a reminder that we all need to take a step back from time to time to evaluate our progress and make sure we're still heading in the right direction, both personally and professionally.
It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind and lose sight of the bigger picture. That's why those regular check-ins are so crucial. Ask yourself, are we still on track? Are we still aligned with our core values? Or have we gotten sidetracked?
It's like taking a step back from the canvas and assessing your painting. Sometimes you need to make some adjustments, even major ones, to create a masterpiece.
And sometimes you have to be willing to scrap the whole thing and start over.
That takes courage. But it's better to course correct than to keep heading in the wrong direction. We've talked about the good to great companies and the doom loop, but I know there was another category of companies in the book, the unsustained comparisons. What happened to those who achieved greatness but couldn't hold on to it?
Ah, yes. They are like shooting stars, bright and brilliant for a short time, then they fade away.
What caused their decline? Why couldn't they maintain their success?
Collins found a few common threads. Often a change in leadership was a major factor. Perhaps a level 5 leader guided them to greatness, but their successor didn't share the same values or commitment to the hedgehog concept.
So they lost their way when they lost that guiding force. What else contributed to their downfall?
Sometimes it was a failure to adapt to changing circumstances. They became complacent, resting on their laurels and failing to innovate. Or they might have become arrogant, losing sight of the principles that brought them success in the first place.
It's easy to get swept up in the success and forget the hard work and discipline that got you there. It's like they stopped pushing on the flywheel.
It's a reminder that building a great company isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. It requires vigilance, humility, and a willingness to keep learning and adapting no matter how successful you become.
It makes you think about all those companies that were once industry leaders but have since faded into obscurity. Perhaps they got complacent, lost sight of their core values, and ultimately stopped pushing on the flywheel.
It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
You can't just coast on past successes. The world is constantly changing, and you have to keep evolving if you want to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's not enough to achieve greatness, you have to maintain it. It sounds like a constant battle against complacency and inertia.
It is. But that's what makes it so challenging and rewarding. Building and sustaining a great company requires ongoing effort, a commitment to continuous improvement, and a deep understanding of what truly drives success.
I'm starting to realize that Good to Great isn't just a business book. It's a philosophy, a set of principles that can apply to any aspect of life where you're striving for excellence.
You're absolutely right. It's about having that growth mindset, that belief that you could always learn and improve, and the discipline to keep pushing forward no matter what obstacles you encounter.
This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of Good to Great so far. We've covered a lot of ground, but I feel like there's still so much to unpack.
There is. And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of those lingering questions and tie everything together with some practical takeaways that you can apply to your own life and work.
I can't wait to hear those. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with the final part of our deep dive into Good to Great. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Good to Great.
It's amazing how much there is to uncover in this book, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
We've talked about level 5 leadership, the flywheel effect, the importance of confronting brutal facts, and the dangers of getting stuck in the doom loop. But there's one big question that keeps coming back to me. I think I know exactly what you're going to say. Can any company, no matter how mediocre or even downright terrible its current state, truly transform itself into a great company?
You read my mind. That's the ultimate question. And I think one of the most hopeful aspects of Good to Great is that Collins and his team didn't just study companies that were already on the path to success. They looked at companies that had been struggling some for decades before they made that leap.
So you're telling me there's hope for even the most dysfunctional organizations out there?
Absolutely. Greatness isn't some predetermined fate. It's a choice and a process. And that process is available to anyone who's willing to embrace it.
So even if a company is in the depths of despair, they can still turn things around. Where do they even begin?
It starts with those fundamental principles we've been discussing. Confront the brutal facts about your current reality, no matter how painful they might be. Identify your hedgehog concept, that sweet spot where your passion, skills, and market opportunities align. Get the right people on the bus, and make sure everyone is committed to building a culture of discipline.
It sounds like a tall order, especially for a company that's struggling. There must be moments when that faith wavers, when those brutal facts feel overwhelming.
That's where the Stockdale paradox comes in. It's that unwavering belief in your ultimate success, even when you're staring failure in the face. It's what separates those who persevere from those who give up when the going gets tough.
So it's not just about having a plan, it's about having that deep inner conviction, that belief that you will find a way to succeed. But even with the right tools and mindset, I imagine there's no one-size-fits-all formula for achieving greatness. Every company is different, facing its own unique challenges.
You're absolutely right. What works for one company might not work for another, but that's where Good to Great provides a valuable framework. It's not a rigid set of rules, but a set of guiding principles that can be adapted to any situation.
So how do we take these principles and apply them to our own specific circumstances? It's easy to talk about the hedgehog concept in a general sense, but how do you actually go about identifying it in the real world?
It starts with asking yourself some tough questions. What are you truly passionate about? What are you uniquely good at? What drives your economic engine? And perhaps most importantly, what could you potentially be the best in the world at?
It's about really digging deep, understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and finding that intersection where your passions and skills align with a real market opportunity.
Exactly. Once you've identified your hedgehog concept, you need to build a culture of discipline around it.
Yes.
That means ensuring that every decision, every action, every investment is aligned with that core strategy.
So it's about having that laser focus, that unwavering commitment to your hedgehog concept, and being willing to say no to anything that doesn't fit, even if it seems like a good opportunity on the surface.
That's a crucial part of it. There will always be distractions, temptations, and pressures to deviate from your path. But the Good to Great companies had the discipline to stay the course, even when it meant saying no to seemingly attractive opportunities.
It makes you wonder how many companies have gone astray by chasing after shiny objects, diversifying into areas that didn't align with their core strengths.
It happens all the time. Companies get seduced by the allure of easy growth or the pressure to keep up with their competitors. But the good to great companies had the wisdom to stay focused on what they did best.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes saying no is just as important as saying, yes, I'm feeling inspired. But I have to admit, the idea of transforming a company or even a team from good to great can feel overwhelming. Where do you even begin?
One of the most empowering messages of good to great is that it's not about making some massive sweeping change overnight. It's about taking those small, consistent steps, pushing on the flywheel, and trusting the process.
So it's not about grand gestures. It's about those daily actions, those incremental improvements that over time create a significant impact.
Exactly. It's like that old adage, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yeah.
You don't have to have all the answers right now. You just need to start moving in the right direction.
That's such a relief to hear. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep pushing forward one step at a time.
And that's a journey we can all embrace, whether we're leading a company, a team, or just our own lives.
This has been an incredible deep dive into good to great. It's given me a whole new perspective on what it takes to build something truly exceptional. I'm feeling energized and ready to start pushing on my own flywheel. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for having me. And to all our listeners out there, keep pushing on that flywheel. The path to greatness might be long and winding, but it's a journey worth taking.